Left-wing media continues public fear-mongering after that leaked draft, of course, overturning Roe v. Wade sent pro-abortion advocates into a spiral. Much of the left is now voicing concerns that overturning Roe v. Wade means ending interracial marriage.
Among other things. But how much of that is accurate, and where in the draft does it even say that? Here to discuss is constitutional law attorney and GOP strategist Ameer Benno and distinguished university professor at Touro College Thane Rosenbaum. I noticed as I was reading through this ruling, Ameer, that it actually mentioned Loving versus Virginia, which essentially is about interracial marriage. And by the way, folks, Clarence Thomas, probably the most conservative justice on the court, is married to somebody who happens to be white. So, Ameer, how do you read this?
Well, the draft decision from Alito, specifically on page 32, there's a paragraph where he says that this decision in no way, shape, or form is to be read as overturning the right to, whether it's interracial marriage or same-sex marriage or right to physical intimacy or right to contraception, all these things that the left is now saying are parade of horribles are going to happen if this draft decision in fact becomes the majority opinion of the court. So they go out of their way in the decision to say that. Also, on the law, there's really no chance that those prior decisions on interracial marriage, that was decided on equal protection grounds, not really on substantive due process. This is all on substantive due process. So it's really not applicable.
All right. Now, Thane, even Eric Swalwell tweeting out, let's take a look. The Republicans won't stop with banning abortion. They want to ban interracial marriage. Do you want to save that? Well, then you should probably vote. Your take on that, because, of course, what we are talking about here, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, well, you have to vote because it's going back to the states.
Right. But what Ameer said is very, very important, and he's right, which is that interracial marriage is different from same-sex marriage. Very different. Why? Because interracial marriage was decided purely on equal protection grounds. It was not based on a manufactured right, like the right to an abortion or a right to contraception or same-sex intimacy or same-sex marriage. If they're going to make an argument, at least that argument should be made with respect to the unenumerated rights. Remember, the enumerated rights are speech, press, assembly, religion, and the right to interracial marriage has been understood as an equal protection right, not a right that was created out of the shadows of other constitutional amendments. So again, the focus on interracial marriage, I think, has a lot to do with these very strong racial sensitivities we have now emanating from Black Lives Matter. So you can see that if you want to drop a bomb on this opinion, go to a racial issue, and that one will do the most damage. And that's why I think it's very important what Ameer said, to make that distinction that Loving versus Virginia doesn't appear to be in danger at all here.
Right. And by the way, then the criticism, well, if they undid this, then they'll undo everything that's ever been ruled on before. And they're making clear, let's get Justice Alito clarified the court's decision, shutting down those fears, saying, quote, nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. Because what they said, Ameer, what the Justice Alito said was, this is different because it ends in the termination of a fetus's life, and that's different from anything else that we're doing. And even, by the way, at one point said, when you're talking about previous cases, sometimes you have to overturn them. Remember Plessy versus Ferguson? That allowed segregation, separate but equal, schools and education. And they're saying, you wanted us to overturn that, right? Well, we're overturning this as well. Ameer.
Yeah, the Supreme Court's overturned over 300 precedents in its history. So this is not, terra incognita here. This is not, they're not charting new waters here to in overturning a decision that they've had for 50 years, which as opposed to something that's existed for the duration of our nation. I'll also just say that there's a difference, because Roe deals with whether a right exists in the first place, or this case, Dobbs, I should say, which analyzes Roe. Marriage is, we recognize that there's a fundamental right to marriage. The question there was, well, who is entitled to get married? But there was no challenge to the fundamental right to marriage. Here, conversely, Roe is about whether that right even exists in the first place. So it's a very, very different analysis. You can't take the decision in this Dobbs case and apply it like the left is trying to do to all these other things. And the only reason that they're trying to do that is because scared people and angry people vote. And they're just trying to intimidate the masses to turn out Democrat votes for the midterms.
Very, very well said. Ameer, Benno, and Thane Rosenbaum, thanks so much for joining us.